Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Azam Khan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. China hits out as Taiwan leader Tsai Ing-wen heads to Central America via the United States. Alibaba shares surge on its restructuring plan, boosting the Hong Kong stock market. And locally, tourism officials hope that new rules will help reduce complaints about mainland visitors. China has warned of retaliation if Taiwan's leader meets U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. This came as Tsai Ing-wen embarked on a visit to Central America. Janice Lowe reports.
Tsai Ing-wen set off for Guatemala and Belize this afternoon on her first official visit in 3 years. Taiwan's leader will stop over in New York on her way to Central America and transit through Los Angeles on her way home. Her expected meeting in Los Angeles with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has outraged China. Before leaving Taipei, Tsai vowed to defy external pressures. Taiwan remains determined on our path to freedom and democracy, even though the path is full of obstacles, she said. In Beijing, the Taiwan Affairs Office warned Tsai not to meet McCarthy.
他如果与美国的众议长麦卡锡接触，那么将是又一起严重违反一个中国原则。
Such contact would seriously violate the One China principle, said spokeswoman Zhu Fenglian, adding that retaliatory measures could follow. The United States urged China not to overreact, saying Taiwan leaders make regular transits. But the Foreign Ministry dismissed Washington's explanation.
不是中方过度反应。
Spokeswoman Mao Ning accused the U.S. of emboldening separatists in Taiwan. It is not China, but the U.S. and Taiwan independence forces who stir up trouble and make provocations, she said. Mao urged Washington not to support independence for Taiwan and to uphold the One China principle. Janice Lowe, HKIBC.
The Hong Kong stock market celebrated Alibaba's restructuring by closing higher. The tech giant will be split into 6 units, with each given the responsibility of facing capital markets on its own. Chloe Feng has the story.
This could be the best week for investors who kept faith in Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba during its downturns. A new chapter of confidence opened following the Hangzhou-based tech conglomerate's decision to split into 6 groups. Following the announcement, its shares surged in New York overnight and jumped by as much as 16% in Hong Kong before closing 12.2% higher, its biggest gain since November. The rebound was a shot in the arm for the Hang Seng Index, which climbed 2%, while the Hang Seng Tech Index saw a robust 2.5% rise. Turnover increased to $146 billion. Other tech firms also advanced. Meituan gained 4%, JD.com was up nearly 2%, and Tencent picked up 1.7%. Alibaba's chief executive Daniel Zhang said the 6 entities will have the support of the holding group, which he will head. Several finance giants welcomed the reshuffle plan. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Jefferies Group upgraded their ratings and price targets for Alibaba. The revamp marked the most significant restructuring in Alibaba's history. It was announced one day after founder Jack Ma returned to Hangzhou after more than a year overseas. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Locally, the government's pandemic advisors say the city no longer needs a universal COVID vaccination program. The scientific committees revised their vaccination guidelines after the World Health Organization updated their recommendations last night. The Hong Kong experts advised people with a higher infection risk, such as those aged above 50, to get an additional booster shot this year, but at least 6 months after their 3rd and 4th doses. Those with a medium risk level, including triple-jabbed healthy adults, can decide whether to get an extra shot this year. But for healthy children, the experts said 3 shots are enough. New rules come into force tomorrow following complaints over mainlanders flocking to some districts. A day before the regulations take effect, mainland tourists and coaches still clogged streets outside restaurants in To Kwa Wan. Joanna Ho reports.
Police in To Kwa Wan urged tour buses to go to a car park nearby instead of parking on the roads. But the streets were still filled with mainland tourists. This man, who had finished a meal with members of his tour group, said they had to wait 20 minutes before their coach returned to pick them up. Speaking on a radio program this morning, Kowloon City District Councillor Pun Kwok Hwa said police had requested tour buses to drop off their passengers at specific locations, then park at designated car parks before returning to pick up the visitors. The Travel Industry Authority met representatives of the tourism and catering sectors yesterday to discuss new measures to reduce the nuisance caused by mainland tour groups. Tour organizers will have to make advance reservations with restaurants, which have to ensure that tourists are given at least 30 minutes to enjoy their meal. There were reports that some visitors had to leave after 15 minutes. Restaurants also have to arrange for people to manage crowds outside. Catering sector representative Simon Wong said restaurants may raise prices by at least 20% by extending the mealtime for each group because they will be able to serve fewer visitors. Travel Industry Council Chairwoman Gianna Su expects small price increases for meals won't hurt the tourists too much. But Tourism Association Executive Director Timothy Cho expects restaurants to lose around 1/3 of their patronage. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
The government plans to bring in overseas workers to ease manpower shortages in various sectors. Lawmaker Tommy Chung said the greatest need is in the construction, catering, and transport sectors. He urged the government to speed up an assessment, which is expected to be completed by mid-year. Another legislator, Peter Hsu, said Hong Kong has only 5,200 imported workers, compared with 15,000 in Macau. Labor Minister Chris Sun said the government is focused on addressing the concerns, but promised that local workers will get priority. The Foreign Ministry said it has no comment on Ukraine's invitation to President Xi Jinping. China has proposed a roadmap to peace, which was discussed during Xi's recent visit to Moscow.
Of course, I gave all the diplomatic and public and not public to President of China, to leader of China, and I want to speak with him because I had contact with him before full-scale war, but during all this year, more than 1 year, I didn't have. We are ready to see him here.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rebuked U.S. Joe Biden for urging him to scrap judicial changes that triggered widespread protests.
Like many strong supporters of Israel, I'm very concerned. And I'm concerned that they get this straight. They cannot continue on this road. And I've sort of made that clear. Hopefully the Prime Minister will act in a way that he's going to try to work out some genuine compromise.
Netanyahu responded by saying Israel does not bow to outside pressure, even from the best of friends. The Prime Minister has put his plan on hold, but protests continued in Israel. Many Israelis are worried that the proposal will give the government more legal powers at a time when Netanyahu is fighting corruption charges. Protests have continued across France as anger intensified after President Emmanuel Macron raised the retirement age. Union leaders urged him to reverse course or face fresh nationwide strikes next week. Violent protests have continued to grip France. Police in Paris said more than 90,000 people were out on the streets of the capital, but trade unions said the actual number was 500,000. There's growing collective anger against President Emmanuel Macron's government after it rammed through a bill to raise the retirement age by 2 years to 64. The demonstrations in Paris got underway relatively peacefully in the morning, but by the afternoon, police were pelted with projectiles and fireworks. The crowds grew restless, chanting on rooftops and burning refuse on the streets. They were met with a beefed-up riot police charge, and tear gas blanketed the streets of Paris. Police arrested at least 27 people. Unions have called for fresh nationwide strikes next Thursday. That will take the work stoppages into April and overlap with the period when the courts are set to rule on the retirement law. Prime Minister Elizabeth Bourne has invited trade union leaders to meet her next week in a bid to avert more chaos. But unionists have indicated that unless the government reverses course, the unrest will continue. Myanmar's military rulers have virtually wiped out all opposition in the country by dissolving 40 political parties. A TV presenter read out the list of expelled parties, which included the National League for Democracy, led by Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi. The government said the League and the other parties had missed the deadline to register for fresh elections at an unspecified date. But Suu Kyi's party said it would not contest polls that it considers to be illegitimate. Low-cost carrier Hong Kong Express has taken delivery of its first A321neo aircraft. Parent company Cathay Pacific said another 15 aircraft of the same model will arrive in the coming 2 years.
As of end of last year, we still have 48 aircraft to be delivered between now and 2028. So there's still a large number of aircraft arriving into the Cathay Group, including 16 new aircraft as we have seen today, A321neo arriving into HK Express. And as these 3 runway systems become fully operational from 2025, we will look into further investment, but not just on our fleet, but on our customer service, on our people, etc., etc.
Hong Kong Express said that its operating capacity has returned to pre-pandemic levels. It believes that the new 236-seat aircraft will be a key element in the company's growth. Employees saw their accounts in the mandatory Provident Fund increase by 3,200 Hong Kong dollars in the first quarter. The positive return came despite a loss of more than $10,000 in February. The European Equity Fund was the best performer between January and March, and the worst was the Hong Kong Equity Fund, which lost more than 1%. MPF consultancy Gain Miles is pessimistic about the next quarter, as it expects the market to continue to suffer from the recent collapse of 4 banks in the United States and Switzerland. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index closed up 407 points. Top 10 active stocks, Alibaba was up $10.30, Tencent up $6.60. JD.com was up $3, AI Insurance up $1.25. Forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.52, pound sterling at 9.69. And over to UK markets, the London FTSE is currently up 65 points. On to the weather now. Mostly cloudy with occasional showers and isolated thunderstorms. Temperatures will range between 19 and 23 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Azam Khan. Good night.